Deep into the state of Missouri sits a small town built on top of a meteorite site, hiding a deep secret, with multiple missing persons reports, recalled health products, and a mayor that's associated with the disappearance of multiple teenagers. Welcome to Rotborough. This video does cover a lot of sensitive topics, and if this isn't something that you want to hear right now, that's totally okay. Please look after yourself, and hopefully I can catch you in the future with a different video. We'll start today by looking at our first major character in this story, Chet Saxman. Chet was born in Rotborough to Alfred and Ginny Saxman and was their second child. He was the front man in a popular local band called Testicular Torsion. He was known to be a difficult child and seemingly didn't graduate any classes and had a criminal record which dates back to when he was 12 years old. Chet has a total of 12 documented arrests just between 1993 and 2003 for various reasons, ranging from public indecency to arson to repeated use of cocaine. In 2003, Chet was admitted to Blue Sky's rehab facility, which he claimed to be his spiritual rebirth. However, according to the police records, this is heavily exaggerated, if not entirely fabricated, as there was multiple arrests following this. Blue Skies themselves claimed that Chet was targeted by police and labelled his further arrests unfair. Chet was offered a job with Blue Skies, and this changed his appearance from embracing the punk scene to a more modest style, embracing a country club-esque attire, which has been pointed out to mirror his father's style. On July 18th, 2004, Chet was reported as missing by his mother. It was initially speculated that Chet disappeared by his own choice due to his history of erratic behaviour. However, most of the town don't believe this theory. 3 days later, remains were discovered which actually belonged to a local teenager, Timothy Rosewald, who worked alongside Chet at the country club. Chet's father's car was found 300 feet from the site of Rosewald's remains, with the key still in the ignition. There were footprints from the car to the site of Rosewald's remains, consistent with Chet's shoe size. This is our first confirmed death in the town of Rotborough. If we now move on to the second character that we're going to be discussing today, we have Luke Lucky LaChance. Luke was born on the 12th of May, 1979. His father wasn't in the picture, and he was raised by just his mother, who relocated to Rotborough in 1983. When he was just 9 years old, Luke went into sudden paralysis, waking up one morning unable to move his body. He was diagnosed with polio, and unfortunately, the disease progressed rapidly. He had no voluntary motor functions, being unable to move or even speak. It was estimated that Luke wouldn't live past 16 years old. By the age of 12, Luke had somehow managed to pull off the impossible and earned the nickname Luke Lucky LaChance. He miraculously managed to recover all motor functions and began to once again be able to move, speak, and effectively live a normal life. Luke left Rotborough in order to pursue further education in a different environment. However, in 2001, decided to return home and to start to work his way up the town's public service system. Many of the residents of Rotborough saw this as a pivotal movement in the town's history, likening it to the revival of Lazarus in the New Testament. During this time, Luke began a very public collaboration with Mayor Gray Jones, who was facing various political challenges and seeing a downturn in public support. Gray saw Luke as a symbol of revitalisation. They worked together to improve infrastructure, attract tourism, and stimulate local business. Notably, Luke was a part of a project to restore the town's sewers, which is going to be an important fact later on. One morning, Luke woke up late for a critical funding meeting regarding the Rotborough Sewer Rehabilitation Plan, or RSRP for short. Luke was then received into the emergency room with a fractured forearm and second-degree burns, which ultimately led him to miss the meeting. He then seemingly walked miles to a local fast food place, Stop and Slop, where he stayed for at least an hour and a half. It seems that when he left, he was the victim of a robbery and assault, as a sign reading "Kick Me" was taped to his back, along with multiple scrapes, bruises, and cuts. Initially, it was believed that his then-girlfriend was responsible for this. However, she was later cleared as she was out of town on the dates that this occurred. The reason they believed it was her is due to the fact that on his arm cast, the words "cheater" and "it's over" were written. However, handwriting analysts later concluded that the writing did not match hers, seemingly clearing her name. It is notable that on the same day, he was terminated from his position as a civil engineer due to failed oversight, mounting controversy with the RSRP and increasing public pressure. Later this night, Luke was seen at the Blue Roan, a small bar in Rotborough. The bartender, Sebastian Venora, said that he didn't know Luke or the man he was speaking to, but noted that the way they spoke together seemed friendly, as if they'd been friends for a long time. Luke was never seen alive after this encounter. After Luke disappeared, many in the town speculated that Mayor Gray may have been responsible, due to a string of local disappearances involving residents and the RSRP. Within the RSRP, Luke's role was to eliminate a mysterious spore or bacterial contamination believed to be polluting the town's water supply. When the project was beginning to secure funding, 2 boys went missing in the sewer system, which just added fuel to the fire and led to even more distrust and fear. Several days after his disappearance, the body of Luke Lucky LeChant was found roughly 5 miles from his home. Photos of Luke's home indicate a very bloody struggle. However, there was never a murder weapon found, and there was no DNA evidence. The only thing found other than Luke's blood was trace amounts of the spores that had been contaminating the water supply. When Luke's mother, Michelle, found out about the murder of her son, she committed suicide by hanging. Once again, Mayor Gray was thought to be a suspect, and the residents started to heckle his speeches, calling him a murderer and hassling him outside of his home. Gray was later dropped as a suspect due to lack of evidence. Our next major character is Mayor Gray. Gray Jones was a long-time political figure in Rotborough, serving as mayor since 1967. Not much else is known about him before this, aside from his date of birth, January 5th, 1923. Jones built a large multi-purpose mall and entertainment venue, aptly called the Jones Progress Pavilion. Residents of Rotborough started to grow concerned regarding the disappearance of Luke, along with the RSRP as a whole. In an attempt to cover this, Mayor Gray launched a PR campaign featuring a satirical character called Nosy Ned. This was received very poorly by the residents of Rotborough, as it felt incredibly dismissive of the concerns around the town. When Chet Saxman disappeared, Jones started influencing the public narrative. He claimed that Chet had voluntarily embarked on a spiritual retreat inspired by his father's own travels. In a public statement, Jones claimed that Chet had personally informed him of his plan to embark on this weeks earlier, but Jones said that Chet had asked for it to be kept a secret to avoid any potential family interference. The RTF, who are the people that have been documenting everything to do with Rotborough, have said that they've been unable to obtain any financial records, staffing lists, or meeting logs for the majority of Mayor Jones's time in office. It's also quite important to note, Mayor Jones's later years in office were marked by persistent rumours regarding unethical alliances and occult affiliations. Little is known about our next 2 characters, so we'll start with John. John is a character that we've seen affiliated with Mayor Jones, frequently via phone call. It's pretty easy to figure out that John is a pseudonym, however, I'm not quite sure what for yet. John is the person who was seen with Luke in the bar the night of his disappearance, and through video shared on Rotborough's Instagram, we were informed that John was the person to murder both Luke and Chet. We frequently see a company van for the business curtain call, either being driven by John or by our next character, Sebi. Sebi and John are quite interlinked as characters, but it's very unlikely they're the same person due to Sebi seeing John with Luke at the bar. Sebi is the owner of the business curtain call. If we then move on to the businesses in Rotborough, we can start with the business that I've just mentioned, Curtain Call. We actually know very little about Curtain Call, but the only information being obviously available is that it's owned by Sebi, is a window treatment business, and has changed both names and services multiple times before. However, if we move over to the Rotborough Truth Archive, we can find out slightly more about this business. We're initially met with the webpage for Sebi's Curtain Call. However, if we use the time machine, we're taken back to 2001 with Sebi's company, Sebi Sweep Up. We see the website looking to be incomplete due to the writing on the home screen, like, Sebi, please provide logo. Sebi, please supply me a new text block to apply here. I've removed my signature for obvious reasons. Interesting. The inquiry and the gallery tabs on this page don't work, so if we have a look at the reviews, we're met with some very strange feedback. All of the reviews mention Sebi getting rid of problems, making them disappear. One reads, "It was like he was never there, ever." Right. If we then go back to 2003, we're met with a very simple webpage with 4 options down the side: home, inquiries, reviews, and photos. If we press on inquiries, we're met with an inquiry form. It looks innocent, however, we will very quickly find out that it's not. If we have a look at the reviews, once again, they strike me as really odd. There's a lot of references to things disappearing, being cleaned up perfectly, taking weight off of the customer's shoulders, which is strange for a curtains company. If we then go to the gallery, in every single photo, somewhere there is blood. We see blood splattered against the wall, car windows smashed with the seat stained with blood. Sebi was never running a cleaning company. Sebi is not running a windows company. Sebi is a hitman. If we then move on to our next company, we're met with Blue Roan. Blue Roan is a town's bar and restaurant and is best known for being the last place that Luke was seen. Again, very little information about Blue Roan is available, but what we do know is that Chet's band performed here. We also know that Sebi was apparently employed as a bartender, which is strange knowing that he owns his own business. The wiki page mentions hostile staff, irregular business hours, and low turnout, which again strikes me as really odd. I'll get to what I think is going on here later. If we visit the Blue Room website, we can access the menu, which doesn't tell us anything, and the live music tab, which is partly redacted, but confirms to us that Chet's band did perform here. However, if you play around with the website and you click in between the 2 chains, you're met with the message, "Who do you know?" If you put in Sebi, you're then taken to a horseshoe puzzle. After solving this puzzle, you're met with another one, which unfortunately I haven't been able to solve, so I can't actually tell you what that leads to. We have 3 more companies to cover, and we'll start with NX Health. NX Health is founded by Alfred Saxman, Chet's dad. It sold a range of sports supplements and performance-enhancing health products, which were all recalled for being unsafe and causing harm to children. There's a really heavy spiritual marketing tone, and the entire website reads like Alfred is just kind of fucking insane. There's a fan club page, which you can see here. It does say at the bottom, "Sign up now," but you can't actually sign up, it doesn't work. If we then move on to the products page, all of this will become more important later when I get onto the Instagram account, but we basically just see a list of Alfred's products. So that just leaves us with the Meet the CEO page, which takes you to a tab to enter your name. When you do put in your name, it just takes you to this page where he addresses you personally. However, if you try and put in Chet's name, you're met with the message, "I wouldn't do that if I were you." We can then move on to the recall information tab at the bottom, where we can see that every single product has been recalled due to health issues, and there's also a place to put a reference number and an email address if your child has been affected by these products. We also see the logo for Growing Minds, which I'll get onto now. Growing Minds is listed as a tutoring company across standard subjects, as well as behavioural support, etiquette coaching, and family counselling. It's founded by Ivy Levine, who, when we look into her, has previous child abuse allegations which were somehow dropped. If we move to their website, we're met with this. They refer to the children as slow in the mind, which obviously really stands out as strange. If we then have a look at the testimonials tab, we see a lot of reviews that again call their children slow in the mind. They all just sing praises for the company. Most of the reviews are really long and detailed, but one in particular stands out to me. One from none other than Sebi, where he simply says, "Great place." This stuck out to me particularly because nowhere online does it mention that Sebi has any children. Strange. If we move to the FAQ tab, it repeatedly encourages for the online test to be used in order to decide if the service is needed. If we move to this page, we're met with their mascot, Varzi. The test goes through questions such as, how do you think Varzi feels staying up late? And Varzi hears a rumour from his friend Bud that the school is testing out secret hallway cameras to see how students behave when they think no one is looking. The next day, Varzi notices a small black dot in the hallway ceiling that wasn't there before. What should Varzi do? I have tried to fill out the test multiple times and I can only get inconclusive as a result, so I don't think it's actually possible to get a negative result. But you are given a ticket number, which interestingly you can then actually use on the NX Health website in order to receive the compensation for these recalled products. Again, I will explain in more detail later how everything ties in together, so just bear with me. The last business I want to cover for now is Boy's Friendship Foundation. Boy the cow is the town's mascot, and it's a cow with no arms wearing a t-shirt that says Boy. The Boy's Friendship Foundation was a charitable organisation operating in Rotborough, with the stated mission of supporting children recovering from serious illnesses, created in the name of Boy the Cow, and operated at least in some capacity by Rockcan, who broadcast Boy's Friendship Ranch and largely managed Boy's media presence as a local celebrity. Really interesting to note that the foundation was sponsored by both NX Health, Growing Minds Learning Centre, and the Kids for Mayor Grey After School Initiative. We also know that Rotplay published some games in Boy's name, like My Pet Boy. At this point, I want to take note of the fact that everything seems to be linked together somehow. We can see this if we look deeper at Boy's connection with Rot Toys. Boy became a video game sensation, but these games, they're all really, really strange. The website says things like, scold and punish the badly behaved boy, and will you watch him turn into a drunken derelict? The game on the website is unavailable, as is the safety warning. There's this fun little Build-A-Boy game, but as far as I can tell, this doesn't actually have any substance to it. However, if we look at the game's screenshots, once again, these are really strange. Bearing in mind that these are games directed at children, we see the game showing alcohol, getting arrested, turning him into a man, how long will you let boy sleep game, as well as a teaching tool where you're just encouraged to harm boy. If we look at the wiki page for Rotplay, the My Pet Boy game is rated as 6+, but has drug use and emotional abuse. At this point in time, to me, everything is pointing to the idea that the town wants these kids to be mentally ill so that they can profit off of it, or it could be something darker than that. We'll look at this in more detail later. I now want to have a deeper look into the cases of both Chet and Luke, using the Instagram post to do so. We'll start with Chet. The first post on the Instagram account was on the 2nd of May 2024 and simply depicts a cow with the word rot on it. We then move on to a photo of Boy with the text reading, "Boy, you were born today. When you walked like that, we thought it was funny. You didn't get it. Those were good times. Thanks for being you, even if it hurt." At this point in time, there's very little to actually say about this, and we then move on to a number of archive posts about various different things. We see a carton of milk with writing on the side which reads, "Rotborough Farms has lost over half our cows in the past year from suspicious circumstances. We've received no help from local police and have continuously been ignored by Governor Jones when reaching out for help. We will soon be forced to change our farm after 10 years of providing the community with quality, safe dairy products. We recommend for our customers to contact Governor Jones's office for support." This is our first kind of indication on Instagram that something deeper is going on with the town with the cows. The next photos depict Luke with 2 gunshot wounds, one to the head and one to the torso, a bum bag, a t-shirt, a can of Udderbuster, which we know is one of Chet's father's recalled products, a pawn shop, which does become important later, a toy, which is titled My First Branding Iron, and then a number of Rage Boy adverts. After these posts, we're met with the first video uploaded to the channel. This is listed as a partial recovery from 1996 titled Farming. The video shows us a diagram of 4 cows with lines pointing to Rotborough. We then see these cows transform into people bent over in almost this kind of praying position, and then it morphs into photos of 4 individuals. We then see the people diagrams with the photos over them being led into this light. They're being watched over by a farmer that's depicted in blue. When they go into the light, we see them scored by points and then disappearing. This repeats until the last person, where the light retracts. Everything then blurs and we see an X through the photo and what looks to be a dead body on the floor. Initially, this looks like some kind of weird cow alien cult, but I don't think it is. I think the cows are being used as a metaphor here. The people of Rotborough are literally just being seen as cattle. They're being selected and given different amounts of points based on their worth. So I wonder if this potentially ties into the Growing Minds Foundation. We know that they were founded in 1993, so I wonder if the people that stay slow in the mind are not selected and then in turn killed. But then, what are they being selected for? As we keep going through the Instagram, I'll try and answer this question as best as I can. The next post we see, we're shown Chet's country club card, and we know he had a job here. This is our first kind of introduction to Chet. The next video is a video of Chet's music. Within this, we see flashes, which show us a hole, and then the next image is a police officer with what looks like a blood-stained sheet. This will make sense later. The next video, which is another music clip, also has the flashes, and in this one, we see what looks to be a censored body and a bag of fertilizer. Again, I'll explain this later. The next video is our first real feature of Chet, and the caption reads, "Learning 1." The video depicts Chet sawing up these body parts, and these videos start to tell us Chet's story. The next video is Chet in a supermarket. We see him buy a shovel, bleach, vodka, and a hacksaw. Chet looks really disturbed, and obviously we can make a pretty obvious guess that he's very distressed and in this very unhealthy mental state. He's kind of tweaking out. In Learning 3, we then see Chet digging a hole, the same hole that we saw in the music video earlier. He continues to dig until we see him almost like come apart. His body like falls apart and he disappears. Learning 4 is a video depicting Chet, where we see his body parts being taken apart and listed. He's left with only his pelvis. And I do think this video ties into the first one we see where Chet was sawing up body parts, but I think this video was actually mainly used to promote their clothing brand and the shirt they made, which is the same as Chet's. In between these posts, we're introduced to the Rage Boy through these game review videos, but at the moment, they don't seem overly important to the story, and I think they were mainly being used to introduce the Rage Boy. We then move on to the prologue of Case 2, which is Luke's story, but we do see Chet pictured in this one. We see him in the sewers, graffitiing the wall and then urinating on it, and posing for a photo. We then see this photo morph into a missing poster, and this is our introduction of Chet having gone missing. We'll come back to the rest of this video later when we discuss Luke. If we then go to Learning Day 5, in this video, we see Chet drinking, being sick with the bleach next to him. He then hears a voice from, predictably, the sewers. He opens the trapdoor, hears a voice, gets scared and closes it. I want to make a note here that we're seeing this image blended in the symbols on the wall and in the trapdoor. It's a Leviathan cross, which is a Satanist symbol, and this definitely does become important later. The video then ends with a car driving past the Parasol Park sign, and in this video it's the last we see of Chet until later on. We don't actually see him featured again until the Lucky Day finale. So far, we know that Chet has killed Timothy Rosewald due to him getting Chet fired from work, cut up his body, purchased the items to dispose of the body, and dug a hole. But we know that Chet never covered the hole before he went missing because of the images that flashed in the music video from earlier. And this video shows us why. The video depicts Chet digging the hole with the fertilizer bags containing Timothy's body parts. However, midway through digging the hole, we see Chet caught by the same car we saw approaching earlier. This is where we see Chet disappear. I promise everything will tie together eventually. We just have to keep breaking things down and putting them together. Interesting to note, the man in the car, we see him holding a cigarette and missing 2 fingers. Keep this in mind. Our very last video of Chet shows this man again approaching with a shovel. We see him drop the shovel in shock as he notices that Chet is somehow still alive. We see Chet very anemic and on death's door but still alive. After the man, who at this point I think we can assume is John, gets over the shock, we see him bury Chet's body, still alive, and this is why Chet's body has never been found. We can now move on and start analysing Luke's case. The first video in this case is the prologue, which I've previously mentioned. The camera zooms into Luke's house, where we can see a Grey Jones sign outside. As we move inside the house, we see this abundance of boy merch, and we also see a calendar with the date circled as well as a good luck card. We then move on to seeing Luke's office desk, again with more boy merch. At this point, I want you to take note of the poster on the wall. This is a map of the sewers. Keep this in mind, again, it becomes important. We're then also shown Blue Roan, the bar that Luke was last seen in on the night of his murder. This video presents really normally until the very end, where we see it zoom in on a booth before the video goes really blurry and cuts off. We then move on to the Lucky Day series, which is presented like a board game. There's 10 videos in this case, and I'll do my best to summarise them all for you as best as I can. The first video shows us Luke waking up late for work on the day of his big meeting. This is the first unfortunate event that we see unfold. At the end of the video, and this does become a reoccurring theme, we see a dark image of a horse, which we can assume is the Blue Roan horse. And to me, this kind of feels like it's forecasting that someone at Blue Roan was observing Luke in the run-up to his death. The next video on the series is where we see Luke spill coffee on himself, burning himself. In this video, we can again see all of the boy merch, and I think it's quite a valid suggestion to make that this is because Luke would have been in the boy friendship program due to his battle with polio. Another really interesting thing is we see the card from earlier, and it's lent in front of the vase of flowers, and we see them drooping and wilted. We know already that the Learning Minds Damaged Child logo is a wilted flower, so at this point, I would maybe assume that Luke was a part of that program and was, at one point, a slow in the mind child, and maybe that's why things are going wrong for him. The next video starts with a curtain call van driving past Luke's house as he leaves, which once again feels like it's foreshadowing his death and the fact that Sebi was involved. We then see Luke break his arm before once again seeing the horse at the end of the video. The next video shows us Luke driving to the hospital where he can't park, leading to his car being towed. Interesting to note that the hospital sign reads St Mary's Baptist Holy Redemption Regional Medical Health Memorial of Rotborough, which to me doesn't really sound like a real hospital at all. It's also the hospital that we see mentioned earlier on in the wiki page, where one of the employees was killing children. The next video we see starts with Mayor Jones promoting the fast food restaurant Stop and Slop. We then see Luke going to get food at Stop and Slop. We see the burger almost rotting, and I'll get to why I think this is later on. Once again, the video ends with the horse and a dial tone this time. If we now move on to Lucky Day 6, we see the rotting burger from Stop and Slop again. And we now see Luke with food poisoning from this burger. What a shock. The video, once again, ends with the horse, and this time a phone call.
Well, ain't this a surprise? Calling me back, just like I said you would. How you doing, baby? Hello? Yes. Are you out of your fucking mind calling me on my public...
We hear Jones answer the phone to who he presumably thinks is a partner, but obviously is not. We hear a deep voice say yes before Jones starts to breathe really heavily and says, "Are you out of your mind, calling me on my office phone?" This is our first introduction to the character of John, although at this point we haven't actually heard his name. Moving on to day 7, we now see that Luke's been fired for missing his big meeting. This video ends with yet another phone call.
Hello? Something's not right, Mr. Jones. Something serious. Do you know what that something might be? I tell you, John, my heart cannot take much more of this cloak and dagger bullshit. Why don't you just get the kumquats out of your mouth and just tell me? Project is ruining everything. What the hell are you talking about? Here's the thing of it. Mayor Gray.
We hear John say that something's not right. We also now hear Mayor Jones refer to John by name, saying, "I can't take much more of this." John tells him, "Your sewer project is ruining everything," and that there's something in it. Obviously, this is where we hear that there's something in the sewers, although what this actually is can't really be confirmed. At this point, I'm assuming it's some kind of cult murder group, but I can't be sure of this, and we'll look at it in more detail later on in the video. In Lucky Day 8, we see the recalled health products that I talked about earlier being shown. We hear how these products cause extreme side effects such as rage, violence, and even death. The ad then cuts off, and we see Luke walking down the street from the point of view of what I'm assuming to be one of the children experiencing these side effects. The person's in a back alley, which is covered in missing persons posters. Yet again, another sign that something disturbing is going on in Rotborough. We then see Luke attacked by this child, leaving him beaten up on the floor. This video once again ends with the horse, a ringtone, and what we now know to be John saying, "Hello Luke, do you believe in destiny?" Luke's time is almost up. Lucky Day 9 shows us Luke getting drunk in Blue Roan until he's approached by John. John asks him, once again, "Do you believe in destiny?" We then see Luke and John sat in the same booth from earlier as they converse about Luke's bad day. John then offers to drive him home before saying, "You won't feel a thing." This video ends with Luke getting into none other than the Curtain Call van. This then leads us to the final video in Luke's case.
Sorry. Luke? Is that you?
I let everyone down.
Whoa, come on, buddy. Relax, it's okay. Things happen. We all have bad days. Hey, buddy.
I fell. I was in the hospital. They
Take a
stole
deep
my
breath, all
car.
Just take a deep breath. Hey, I need you to listen to me, pal. Just take a deep breath.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's all right. Where are you right now?
I don't actually know. I met this guy at Blue Road, and he's driving me home right now.
What's that? What'd you say?
He's driving me home.
Driving you home? All right. Hey, whoa. Take it easy, buddy. Mind if I talk to him on the phone? Can you hand him the phone?
Yeah, hold on. Give me a second.
Hello. I'll meet you at his place. Make sure everything's ready. You're worried too much, Mr. Jones. Let's not your ass on the line. Remember, Nina's counts. I'll be there in 1/2 hour. I'll be seeing you. Goodbye, Mr. Jones.
This video is from the point of view of Luke, and we see him sat in the passenger seat of Seb's van, calling Jones. Luke is sobbing and apologising, and we hear Jones ask to speak to the man that's driving him home. It's at this point that we find out that Luke's been set up and is in fact with John, who's working with Jones. Jones says he'll meet them at Luke's place, to which John responds, "You worry too much." Jones then responds with, "It's not your ass on the line. Remember, neatness counts." Interestingly, this really mirrors the language that we saw earlier on Sebi's website, which, to be honest, is unsurprising. And that is the end of Luke, Lucky, the Chance. In between the Lucky Day videos, we have 2 posts which are unrelated to that series. The first of these is another archived video of people in the sewers. However, we don't actually know who they are as the faces are blurred. In the sewers, on the walls, we once again see the Leviathan cross and then see a figure in the sewers who seemingly attacks the people. This video then cuts to a phone call who I'm assuming is between Luke and Jones as they discuss the sewer project. Within this phone call, it sounds like Jones is aware of the video that's been taken in the sewers, but it does cut off before any real information appears. We then have the Lucky series interrupted again with a PSA video called Nosy Ned. The video basically warns citizens about gossiping about Mayor Gray and not to listen to rumours. Again, we hear about the sewer restoration plan here, and we're told that Mayor Gray is building the future, and unsurprisingly, the message is sponsored by none other than Gray himself. So, I know there's been a lot to take in so far, so I appreciate you for sticking with me. We're now at the more fun bit of the video as we can start to properly develop and break down some theories. I think we are still missing quite a lot of information, so at this point in time it's hard to come up with any concrete theories, so these are all very speculative. I think the biggest theory that we want to cover is what's going on in the sewers. When looking at the website, we can see this post on the old radio show website. Within this, we can see that it's very heavily implying that there's some kind of cult worshipping Boy the Cow, possibly in the sewers. We've also seen really heavy mentions to Satanism throughout with the use of the Leviathan cross, which we saw shining in the sewers. So I do think it's fair to say at this point that it seems like some kind of satanic cult. Now, we could suggest that this is possibly linked to Mayor Jones. We see in the first Instagram post that humans are being treated as cows, so this could also link somehow. I'm just honestly not sure how yet. It's also very clear that Jones doesn't want people going into the sewers and is telling people that he's running this restoration project. To me, it's pretty obvious that there is no real project, so maybe he's protecting the sewers from these kind of cult meetings being down there. We could also look at this from an angle as maybe he's storing bodies in the sewer. We know that from the first video that one person wasn't selected and was instead killed, although we don't really know why. Storing bodies in the sewer could add up as to why he doesn't want people down there, and could also fit in with the fact that the water's infected by something. Another potential theory that does kind of link to this is the idea that Stop and Slop is serving human meat. We see the meat rotting and then we see Luke get unwell, so it's pretty clear that something's going on with this. I would presume that in order to dispose of the bodies, the body parts are being taken to Stop and Slop and then being served in the food. It is slightly annoying that we can't fully come to conclusions on these theories because of this lack of evidence, because personally I can't really figure out why people are being killed, like for what purpose. Another theory that I do have comes from looking at NX Health. We see that this is linked to both Growing Minds and the Boy Friendship Foundation, so this makes me think that Chet's dad is almost trying to harm kids. Possibly they're trying to harm them so that they can see who's worthy, as in who can come back from these mental illnesses. When you put Chet's name in on the website, you can't access anything, which makes me think that Chet's dad was trying to hide what he was doing from his son. Again, I think this can probably very heavily link to this potential cult that we're seeing form. All of these people are connected to Mayor Jones, so it would make sense that they're all a part of this cult. Another really interesting thing that I think is worth mentioning is that we're seeing this story being told by someone's going through Rotborough's archive, but there seems to be a lot of inconsistencies in the documentation. Obviously, this could just be down to the fact that there's a lot of information and the creator's missing things, but I'd personally prefer to infer this as the person documenting this being affected by this possible mental illness that's caused by Alfred's products or caused by whatever's in the sewers. The last theory I have, and I actually really like this one, is the idea that Luke was always meant to die. Obviously, we know that Luke had polio as a child, which is considered fatal and has up to a 5% mortality rate. The fact that he survived this alone is incredibly impressive. We can link this to later on in the Lucky Day series, where we see Luke talking to John. We have John asking Luke twice, do you believe in destiny? And I looked at this as John almost saying that Luke was always meant to die. Dying was his destiny as a child. He was supposed to die from polio and he didn't. We also already know that there's this cultish, Satanist stuff going on, which led me to think that possibly Luke's mum made some kind of deal with the devil, who, in this case, the devil is Mayor Jones, in order to keep Luke alive and healthy and have this complete recovery from polio. This could make sense as to why we then see Luke working this really high-level secretive job with Jones. My only issue with this is that I don't understand why Jones would then have him killed, unless it was something along the lines of Luke found out about what Jones was really doing and didn't agree with it. Maybe he wasn't supposed to know about the cult and then found something in the sewers which led to him being killed. This could then also make sense and could tell us about why Chet was killed. Maybe Chet came across something in the sewers that Jones then found out about, leading him to get Chet killed. We could also possibly suggest that Chet was in the cult and after stripping himself of this punk identity, he wanted to expose it, but I'm less convinced by that one. Like I said, there is still a lot of the story missing, I think, which will come with time, so at the moment these theories aren't really concrete at all. I really hope that I've covered everything well enough and I haven't missed anything. There is a lot to go over, there's a lot of websites and a lot of information, and I've tried my best to include everything important. If you guys do have any other theories that I haven't mentioned or I haven't thought of, I'd really love to hear them in the comments. At this point in time, I do think that I have covered everything as best as I can. There is actually a third case that's starting to develop on Instagram, which I haven't covered yet due to it just being incomplete. I think the case that's developing now could be showing us John in his younger years and what led him to become this hitman. If you guys are interested in another video that covers this and hopefully goes into more detail on the existing theories, let me know down below and I will definitely do that for you. If you've made it to this point in the video, I just want to say thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please consider dropping a like, subscribing, or maybe leaving me a comment just saying hi.